This is on Deadline. I think most of either comic book fans, most of you who are genre entertainment fans are probably already aware of this. But of course, Denny O'Neil, one of the, I would say one of the greatest writers in comics, actually died. He actually recently passed away. He was 81. This is actually from Deadline. This is by Anita Bennett. And it basically says Denny O'Neil, a legendary comic writer who worked for both Marvel Comics and DC Comics, has died. He was 81. O'Neil passed away Thursday. His alma mater, St. Louis University, shared on social media. A cause of death was not given. DC Comics also posted a tribute on its official Twitter account, saying O'Neil's voice will be missed. DC mourns the passing of Dennis Denny O'Neil, who co-created some of DC's and the industry's most important comics. Between revitalizing Batman and telling thoughtful stories that address addiction and racism, he told the stories we needed to hear. His voice will be missed. When I think of Denny O'Neil, I think of obviously the Hard Traveling Heroes stories. For those that are not, too familiar with that, that was actually the legendary Green Arrow, Green Lantern series that took on a lot of difficult topics such as racism. And the ideas of corporate greed, and that series was really great. Of course, he actually worked with Neil Adams and actually helped to revitalize and give us the new vision version of Batman that actually emerged out of the 70s, that eventually led to the version of Batman that we know of today, the more dark, ominous defender that prowls the night. I mean, they really helped to kind of bring that version of Batman back into the public consciousness. But in addition to that, for me, a big one that Denny O'Neil worked on was actually his Question series with Dennis Cohen. I've loved that Question series for the longest time. It's just so interesting and such an interesting look and exploration of a character. It's just a really fantastic series. I always recommend that people actually look at and check out the DC Comics series from the 80s on the Question. So anyhow, we just want to just take a moment and acknowledge Denny O'Neil passing away. Probably should have done it at the beginning of the show. I felt like most people were probably aware, but then I started thinking about it, and I was like, maybe some people are not. But we do want to take just a moment and acknowledge the passing of Denny O'Neil, his amazing legacy. I want to encourage people to actually check out a lot of the work that Denny O'Neil has done. They've done collections and reprinted a lot of his work. If you're not too familiar with Denny O'Neil and you're curious to even get a series of recommendations of things that might be worth checking out, you could always just direct message me. You could contact me and just say, hey, I'm curious to learn more about Denny O'Neil or read some of the stuff that you love that he actually created. And I'll be more than happy to personally message you and give you a couple of recommendations. But I'm going to tell you right now, the question's going to be at the top of that list. So, Eric, had you heard about the passing of Denny O'Neil?
I had not. I was not aware of that until you brought it up. I'm not terribly familiar with his work, but as I mentioned, I am a DC guy, so I'm sure that there are some of his books that I have read, but I was not aware that he passed. So that's some sad news there.
Yeah. And Denny O'Neil was also a legendary Batman editor, too. He was actually the editor of the Batman series when they did the whole thing with Bane and the breaking of the Bat and the emergence of Azrael. One of the interesting stories about Denny O'Neil is that Batman issue 500 that actually sort of was the emergence of Azrael as the new Batman. Anniversary issues in comics sometimes can be very important for certain artists and creators to be on, especially if a company actually pays royalties, because one of the things that's really great about DC is the fact that they do actually extend to their creative partners a royalty program so that you can still see a little bit of money for the things that you work on. So anytime you get the chance to contribute to an anniversary issue or something that's really important for a character where they know there's going to be a lot of sales, that can be like a huge helping hand to certain creators. For example, one of the things that happened is that Denny O'Neil actually made sure that Jim Aparo actually stayed on Batman up until issue 500. And he was able to see a lot of those royalties because at the time, a lot of people were looking at Jim Aparo's work and feeling like it wasn't contemporary, edgy enough. And a lot of people were questioning why he was still on Batman. But Denny O'Neil actually honored and acknowledged his legacy as an important Batman artist by allowing him to continue to be on the series, and it actually helped him out actually financially, in his later years as Jim Aparo got older, and it was sort of felt that his work was out of touch, and he was kind of shushed, kind of ushered, kind of out of the industry to an extent. Denny O'Neil had a lot of loyalty to the writers and the artists that he worked with as an editor, and there's a lot to be said for that. That's the kind of thing that doesn't really exist too much anymore.
We were just talking about how loyal DC normally is, though.
Yeah. But see, that's the difference. That there used to be a time in a day when there was loyalty,
Yeah.
So just want to say, that there's a big difference between DC Comics at the era in which we grew up reading them, and I'm sure you're aware of, versus, kind of sometimes what's come later. And that's not a huge criticism or a knock. I mean, I worked on a lot of those later books, so I don't want to be too heavy-handed in my criticism, but it's a very different time, I think, just for the world in general. But that's one of the cool stories that comes out of Denny O'Neil's legacy that, that doesn't get talked about too much is, because an editor has the ability to do that, to fight to keep a creator on a book. And sometimes that can make all the difference in the world, as someone's either going into their retirement or they're about to be pulled off of a book for some reason. Displaying loyalty for a creator who's been on that series and actually, looking at it from the standpoint of, we've got an anniversary issue, this could really help them out down the road. That's huge. That's huge. So, and all I've ever heard is such stories about that Denny was just such a great guy. I never had the opportunity to meet Denny. So, I did stand in line at San Diego Comic-Con for like 3 or 4 hours in the hopes of actually getting to talk to him. And I actually had a stack full of question books for me and some of my friends I wanted him to sign. And he got up and left right as I was getting close to the table. I guess so sad and dejected, I just got out of line and just walked off. I was just like, fine, whatever. So he was the main person I wanted to talk to, and I never had the chance to meet him. So
that's a bummer. That's definitely a bummer.
Yeah.